In November of 1962, my grandmother put up 30 lemons in 2 mason jars, salt-packed, pressed tight, sealed, and set on the cellar shelf. She did not touch them again until February. When she opened the first jar in February, the lemons inside bore almost no resemblance to the fruit that had gone in 3 months earlier. The rind had softened completely. The bitterness had disappeared. The pith, which is the white layer that makes fresh lemon rind harsh and sharp when you try to eat it in any significant quantity, had transformed into something mellow and complex and intensely lemony in a way that fresh lemon simply is not. She used those preserved lemons through the winter and into the following summer, and the jar she opened in July was as good as the one she opened in February. One afternoon of work in November, 8 months of the finest lemon flavor she could put into a dish. That is what I'm going to show you today. Not the 3 or 4 ways to extend a fresh lemon by a few weeks, which most videos on this topic cover, and which I will mention at the end for completeness. The main thing I want you to walk away from this video knowing is preserved lemons, what they are, what they do, why the result is different from, and in many ways better than fresh lemon, and how to make them so that you never again feel the gap between August when lemons are everywhere and January when a single decent lemon costs what it costs. I am Levi Yoder. I was raised plain here in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and the kitchen I grew up in had preserved lemons on the shelf from November through the following October without interruption. They were not a specialty item or a foreign technique. They were the plain solution to the plain problem of a citrus fruit that costs real money, peaks in seasonal availability in winter, and does not last long enough in its raw form to serve you through the months when you most want it. Salt does what cold cannot, and what salt produces from a lemon over the course of several weeks is an ingredient that fresh lemon simply cannot be. Before I show you, let me say this plainly. If you want the full collection of the old homestead methods that were handed down in our family, from the garden and orchard to the pantry, cellar, and the everyday keeping of a house, I have gathered them into one simple ebook. You will find it in the description below. Now, let us get back to the topic. Here is what preserved lemon is and why it is a genuinely different ingredient from fresh lemon. And I want you to understand this before the technique, because the technique is simple and the understanding is what makes you able to use the result intelligently. When you pack a raw lemon in coarse salt and seal it in its own juice, 2 things happen over the following weeks that together transform the fruit completely. First, the salt draws moisture out of the lemon through osmosis, creating a concentrated brine inside the jar that is highly acidic and very salty, a self-generating preservation environment. Second, the salt and the acid together break down the pectin that gives the rind its structure and the pith its bitterness. The pith, the white layer between the yellow skin and the fruit flesh, contains the compounds that make raw lemon rind too harsh to use as a featured ingredient. Pectin breakdown during the curing process dissolves those harsh compounds and leaves behind the complex, aromatic oils that are the finest thing the lemon had in it all along. After 4 weeks of curing, the pith is edible. After 8 weeks, it is genuinely good. What you are left with is a rind and pith that carry concentrated lemon flavor without the bitterness that makes fresh lemon rind difficult to use in any real quantity, and a brine in the jar that is itself a condiment worth using. This is why preserved lemon does what fresh lemon cannot. You can use the rind of a preserved lemon in the same quantity you would use a fresh herb, and the dish absorbs the lemon flavor the same way, deep and sustained and woven through the other flavors, rather than bright and sharp and sitting on top of them. A tablespoon of minced preserved lemon rind in a grain dish or a long braise does something that squeezing a wedge of fresh lemon over the same dish does not replicate, because you are adding the aromatic oils of the lemon without the acid punch, the character of the fruit without the chemical signal that registers immediately as sour. That distinction matters in cooking. Acid added at the end of cooking stays on the surface of a dish. Aromatic oils integrated through slow cooking weave into everything they touch. The preserved lemon gives you the second one in a way the fresh lemon cannot, because the fresh lemon's aromatic oils are not accessible without the acid coming with them. Once you have used both forms of the same fruit and felt the difference, you will keep a jar of preserved lemons going as a permanent part of your pantry the same way you keep salt. Now, how to make them. Use organic lemons if you can find them at a reasonable price, because you will be eating the rind. Wash them thoroughly, cut each lemon almost all the way through into quarters from the stem end, stopping before you cut through the base so the lemon holds together as one piece and opens like a flower. Pack a generous amount of coarse salt into each cut lemon, roughly a tablespoon per fruit, pressing the salt into the exposed flesh. Pack the salted lemons tightly into a sterilized glass jar and press them down firmly so the juice begins to release. The pressing matters. You want the lemons compacted into the jar, releasing their juice, beginning the process that will submerge them. Add 2 tablespoons of additional coarse salt over the top. Seal the jar. Leave it at room temperature for 3 days, then turn it upside down for 3 more. By the end of 6 days, the lemons will have released enough juice that they are nearly or fully submerged in their own brine. If they are not fully submerged, squeeze additional fresh lemon juice into the jar until the lemons are covered. Submerged is important. Any part of the lemon sitting above the brine is not curing and may mold. Top off with fresh juice, seal, and move the jar to a cool, dark spot. Leave it alone for a minimum of 4 weeks before you open it. The longer you leave it, the more completely the pith transforms, and the better it becomes. 4 weeks is the minimum. 8 weeks is better. 3 months is better still. To use preserved lemon, remove a piece of rind from the jar. Rinse it briefly under cold water to remove the surface salt, and cut away any remaining flesh from the inside if you want only the rind. The flesh is edible but very salty and slightly bitter. Most traditional uses call for only the rind, rinsed and minced. Do not rinse the whole piece before storing again. Keep the unused pieces submerged in the brine. The brine itself is valuable. It is months-old lemon juice fermented with salt, carrying concentrated lemon flavor, and a small amount used as a seasoning agent in a dish does the work of salt and acid and citrus simultaneously. Do not pour it out. Here is what to do with preserved lemon once you have it. The rind, minced fine, goes into grain dishes, into stuffings, into braised chicken and lamb, into salad dressings, into pasta with olive oil and herbs, into any application where you want lemon flavor to carry through the cooking rather than brighten the surface. A quarter of a preserved lemon minced into the butter and herbs you put under the skin of a whole chicken. Before roasting does something extraordinary to the finished bird that no amount of fresh lemon juice achieves, because the flavor integrates into the fat and the meat over the roasting time in a way that acid applied at the end does not. Sliced thin, it layers into sandwiches and grain salads as a discrete ingredient, providing bursts of complex lemon flavor. Dried further after the curing is complete, it stores as a crumble condiment like a dried herb. Now let me tell you honestly what the preserved lemon will not do, because I always try to be straight about limits. It will not replicate the brightness of a fresh lemon squeezed over fish or salad at the moment of serving. The volatile top notes that give fresh lemon its immediate sharpness are reduced by the curing process. Preserved lemon is for depth, for integration, for cooking. Fresh lemon is for brightness, for finish, for the immediate sensation. They are tools for different moments, and the kitchen that has both is a richer kitchen than one that has only one of them. For keeping fresh lemons longer while you wait for or between batches of preserved ones, the 2 most useful methods are simple. A whole lemon sealed in a small zip bag in the refrigerator keeps 4 to 6 weeks. A cut lemon with plastic wrap pressed directly against the cut face keeps a week to 10 days. Neither of these is complicated and neither requires explanation beyond what they are. Think for a moment about what the grocery store sells you in January when you want a lemon. It sells you a lemon that was grown and selected for size, for uniformity, and for hardiness in a cold shipping chain, rather than for the flavor of the aromatic oils in its rind. It sells you a fruit that will last 10 days on your counter before it goes soft. It sells you the same item every week of the year, because that replacement model is what works for the store when you never become aware of a different option. The 30 lemons my grandmother put up in November of 1962 cost her the price of 30 lemons, a bag of salt, and 1 Saturday afternoon of work. They served that kitchen for 8 months. The economics of that trade are not something the grocery store model has any interest in teaching you, because a kitchen that puts up 30 lemons in November and does not need to replace them until the following summer is a kitchen making 8 months of purchases the store is not making. The knowledge that enables that is the knowledge that does not get taught. Tell me in the comments whether you have made preserved lemons before, and if you have, what dish you use them in most. If you have not made them yet, Tell me what is stopping you, because the answer might be something I can address directly. And tell me your county and your state while you were there. I read every single one. Next time, I'm going to show you how my grandmother applied the same salt-curing principle to a vegetable, rather than a citrus fruit. The fermented cabbage method she kept going in a large crock in the root cellar every winter from October through April. And why the sauerkraut that came out of that crock in March was a different category of food from anything sold in a can or a jar at any grocery store. The same principle, a different result, and a different kind of nourishment. The people who built this country with their own two hands knew things we are only just now truly beginning to remember.